everyone. Welcome to All In on Real Estate. I'm your host, Aaron Goins. I started this meetup because when I was in the military, no one in my circles talked about real estate. A lot of times we talked about debt, finances, and other things, but nothing about real estate. So I want to start a meetup where people can talk about real estate and start building generational wealth for them and families. So my guest speaker, Mr. Brady, how you doing, sir?
Good, man. Good to be here, Aaron. Really looking forward to it. We've been trying to connect on this, I think, for a while now. So it's good to finally see the day come.
Yes, absolutely. I'm excited, man, and I'm excited for you to spread your knowledge to everyone, man. So, can you tell us a little bit about your origin story and how you got started in real estate?
Yeah, absolutely. I started. So I used to live in Orlando for quite a while. And when I was there, I bought my first house with the intention of not really staying there long, of fixing it up and then selling it, making a little money off of it. So that was probably my first introduction to it. While I was doing that, I brought in a renter. So I did that, sold it, bought another house with the intention of really, again, kind of remodeling it and almost kind of like living in it and flipping it, and at the same time having renters come in as well. So, just trying to capitalize on the market and rental income a little bit. Unbeknownst to me, the market turned quite severely in 2008, as we now know. So that kind of put a big pause button on it, to be honest. I got married, had kids. We moved up here to Charlotte. So I live now in Charlotte, North Carolina. We love it up here. Anybody wants to come up here, let me know. happy to share why I like it. But so we've been up here in Charlotte for almost 10 years. And a few years ago, there was some uncertainty in my career and really in the industry, not just at my job, but in the industry as a whole that I was in. And that drove a lot of uncertainty, and that uncertainty drove me to start looking around at what other options are out there. Yeah. It didn't occur to me at that time to jump back into real estate, but eventually that's where it led, over the course of several months, led back into, hey, let's build up a buffer, right? I don't want to be so dependent on, my W-2 income that I have to make choices that I don't really want to make, right? So I wanted to be in a little bit more control, and, uncertainty sometimes breeds, lack of action, right? It kind of stops us in our track. In this case, it really drove me to figure out a way to bring in some extra income. And so I started looking at single family homes in and around the Charlotte area. And, I was running the numbers, I was looking at these as single family rentals. And then decided, duplexes and triplexes make a lot more sense, just analytically. And, you get two rents for the price of one under one roof. That's good math to me. So I started looking at those, still hadn't bought anything. And just kind of getting my feet wet and looking at the market, analyzing it, how much income could we get from this over time? And when I just did the math, it was like, man, I'm going to have to accumulate so much of these to make a really profitable income from. And around that same time, I came across a 5-unit that is now a commercial property, in my underwriting, but I've never analyzed a commercial property, right? I've never talked to anybody about a commercial loan. And so that kind of was a trigger event for me, if you will. I feel like I kind of tripped into the multifamily space. When I came across these 5 units, I had to call a commercial loan person because we were really close in the negotiations on it. Ultimately, it didn't work out, but still, it kind of gave me that nudge where it was like, oh, rental properties can be evaluated off of their own net operating income, not their neighbors, and that was really attractive to me. So, I kind of quickly progressed from looking at single family rentals, just realizing, man, it's going to take me a lot of accumulation to build up enough profit and enough properties from single family. How about we do duplexes, triplexes, and still kind of had that same problem. And then quickly went into this realization that, hey, commercial real estate seems a lot better because, one, I'm not dependent on just hoping for appreciation. I can force that appreciation. So ultimately, that was the decision point that, hey, I'm going to go into commercial multifamily and start looking at the time, I thought it would be small apartments, 10 units, 15 units. But then slowly over time, just convinced myself that, yeah, the way to go is some of these larger properties where you can get, much better scale, much more profitability, better expense ratios, all this type of stuff. And that's when I decided, hey, I'm going all in this. Hired a coach and mentor, surrounded myself with a ton of people that are in this space, kind of like these meetups that you're leading here, Aaron, and really just started diving deep, trying to meet as many people as I can, build out a big network, learn a ton, listen to podcasts, kind of like everybody does. And that's kind of where I got started. Really, I really enjoyed the people side of it. So my background's in engineering. I was an engineer, started in engineering way back when in 2000. And quickly I realized, hey, I like people more than numbers. So I kind of migrated into doing more project management, went in, had a management role for a little while, went back into project management. And so I have that kind of background, that mentality, which honestly lends itself well to, buying apartments, going through the acquisition, asset management, all that type of thing. So it was actually an interesting parallel to this, and just the people side of the business, meeting, there's a ton of good people in this space, and there's a lot of people that genuinely, will help you out. And kind of stand alongside of you. Of course, there's partnerships that can be formed pretty easily. So I really latched onto it, really started to enjoy it, and kind of never turned back.
That's a ton of stuff to dive into. Let's man, I love the origin story. I love asking people the origin story because you just find out so much. So when you moved to North Carolina, moved to Charlotte, was it just a natural thing for you to start looking at, or you wanted, or it was a more controlled thing for you, or it was more of a, I just find it easier to work in here in my region than anywhere else?
I think in the beginning it was more convenience, right? So in the beginning it was like you start looking around you because that's what you know. I mean, the first apartment syndication that I went into was up in Michigan. Now that was through a partnership. I didn't find it. I came into the partnership there and, helped them raise some money and helping on the asset management side of it, helped them a lot through closing and so on. But I think the beauty of this is, anyone can kind of figure out like what they're good at, right? Like, I'm really good at running numbers. I don't enjoy it as much, but I can certainly do it. So I have a pretty strong, aptitude for the underwriting. I've got someone else that's helping me with that. I've built systems and processes around it so that it makes it easy on me so that I can farm it out to someone else. And then at the same time, I also enjoy kind of what I just mentioned, which is, hey, let's find a way to work out the process of this. Let's actually write down what we're doing as an example and find a way to improve it. And so what I found out is in this space, there's a lot of people that benefit from that. Because I think, well, let me rewind a bit before I go there. What I was going to say is I think, there's a lot of room for the skill sets that we all have. Yeah. We tend to look at some of these syndicators and it's like, oh, they've got a guy that does this. They've got a person that does this and they got a person that does this, at least in their titles. Right? Now what they do beneath, who knows? But at least in their titles, we kind of break it up into these categories. But the reality is there's a lot of people out there that need people to help out with underwriting sometimes. There's a lot of people out there that need capital raising. But there's skill sets that I think are kind of that natural tendency for a lot of people. And And, in this space, you can really find a good way to get plugged in with people and a good way to add value. And that's the key is, hey, how can I take what I already know? I may not know a lot, especially in the beginning, right? I may not know a lot, but I know enough that, hey, I can help people out with underwriting. I can help people raise capital because I know a lot of people. Or, I like being in front of people. I like being on Facebook and doing different things. You can definitely help people raise money and other things like this. So I think it's a unique space in that it truly doesn't matter your background. You look at the people on the call today, right? I mean, just the diversity of background here, and there's a lot of people that are active in the space, and it's truly like real estate's truly like a melting pot of a bunch of people that don't come from the same background, certainly don't come from the same job, perspectives, right? But at the same time, you're able to find these partnerships and find a way to make them work to bring in skill sets that are valuable to people, right? And that's why I love the space. It's tremendous, and you get to meet a lot of great people, and you get to really partner with them in big ways.
Right. So, next question: why get a mentor?
Why get a mentor? So, yeah, I've had a lot of people ask me that, and the question that you didn't ask is, do you need a mentor? Right? But they're very much related, right? So I know people on both sides of it. For me, when I was starting out, I mean, you look at the space and you're like, oh yeah, I mean, I'm going to have 10 apartment complexes in like 2 years, I mean, of course I will.
You're right.
How can't you? I mean, right?
Yeah.
And so you look at this, you're like, yeah, I'm going to do that. So, at some point, reality starts setting in that, the brokers, they're bringing deals to people, but they're not bringing deals to me, right? And there's a reason for that sometimes, right? So I can either partner with someone that's already doing it, right? Option one, or I can hire a mentor to help me accelerate. And at the time, honestly, I was still just getting started, but just simply looking at the business of it all, I at that point I was like, what's the quickest way for me to get from where I am today to closing on an apartment complex? And for me personally, that was, I'm going to pay for a mentor. I'm going to get someone to tell me that's been there, done that, and they've closed syndications, they've done joint ventures, they have relationship with brokers. They can tell me, they can give me a lot of value by teaching me, hey, what am I doing wrong or what am I missing? And at the time, it was also, hey, what are the pitfalls that I need to avoid? And a mentor brings that for sure. But do you absolutely need a mentor to get that? I would say no, right? I mean, you can partner with people, and if they're, especially if you know them well, right? You can partner with people and they can give you that exact education. Because if you're trying to shorten the distance from, hey, I'm just getting into this, to either I want to close on my first property, or if you're already in the space and you're like, I want to get to full-time in real estate, there's, you need to shorten that ramp somehow, right? And the ways to do that are, you hire someone that's been there already and they can teach you what they know, and then has the time to do it, right? And then the other one is you partner with someone that's willing to teach you. And so I know a lot of people that did not do mentorship, but through their partnerships and through the people that they know, were able to get that same education and get that same value from just working very closely with someone and having them come in. And I mean, the goal ultimately is, how do I avoid the big mistakes? How do I, because we have passive investors, right? It's a huge responsibility, right? And so how do I avoid pitfalls that are typical in the industry? How do I shorten the time frame between where I am today and where I want to go? And then ultimately, how do I give the best product to my investors, so that, so they keep coming back, so they know they can trust me, so they know that we know what we're doing, right? Because ultimately your investors are looking at you. They're not looking at the property. They're looking at you, and they want to know, do you know what you're doing? So yeah, so that's, probably a long-winded way of saying, why did I get a mentor? You don't know what you don't know. And for me at the time, that was the quickest way to kind of launch into this industry.
Right. Right. Okay. So I'm gonna ask you a question I never asked before to another guest speaker, but I think it's important to ask this. And you talk about how, we want to have something besides your W-2 job. And I know you talk about system and processes as well.
Mm.
Have you implemented what you learned from your job to your business in real estate? I'm talking about like some kind of the systems that you got. I know you're an engineering background, but did you use anything that, as far as what you have for your job now into your career? Because I've heard other people have done that and been successful, because, like, for instance, McDonald's, they had their own systems, and people brought that to real estate and been really successful doing it. So have you done that with what you learned in your W-2 to your real estate business?
So yes and no. So the industry is extremely different, right? So it's not like you can take this process and just plug it in, but the mentality is there, right? So the basics behind it, right? So if you're looking at, hey, how do I do something well? A lot is transferable from, and I think everyone's doing this. I mean, you just naturally kind of do it without thinking about it, right? You know what you know, right? And then you look at what you're doing over here in real estate, and you're trying to figure out, well, how can I plug in all this and take the skill sets, is probably a good word, the skill sets that I already have, and then how do I plug those existing skill sets over here where I can make a ton of money? And that's basically, yeah, that's what I did. So, I have lots of project management background. I have a lot of background in working with people and goal setting and, developing processes, challenging the process, right? Improvement, all this type of stuff. And so, yeah, it's a natural integration from that perspective straight into real estate, right? So when you look at the acquisition process alone, right, we would probably be shocked at the number of people that have a defined process for acquisitions, right? But the people that are working on that, right, whatever that process is for them, doesn't honestly even matter. It just matters that, hey, they're starting with something, and each time they go through that, they're improving it, right? So, going from LOI to closing is a ton of steps, if you will, and it's important, out the gate, you may not even know what those steps are, but it's important to actually have some process written down. And I think that's the big gap right now in a lot of people is you can get into some of these projects and you can implement them, you can execute them, and you can close. But if you're looking at long-term and you're looking at, hey, this is a business, right? This isn't just, I don't want to just be an active investor, right? This is a business for me, right? And it's two different mindsets, right? An active investor is, hey, I'm going to go partner with some people and we're going to be a GP, right? That's an active investor. A business is, hey, yeah, I'm still going to do all that. I'm still going to go find investments. I'm still going to bring in investors. I'm still going to be a general partner, but I'm going to build a business out of this. And a business without process is going to fail. Yeah. And, that's what, when I'm talking to people recently, that are getting into it, I kind of really encourage them to figure out, what do you really want, right, out of this? What are you good at? Kind of to your question, did you bring your skill set from your W-2 into this? The answer is yes. That kind of is in the what are you good at? And what can you bring to the table? And then, how can you integrate that into to the real estate gig? But at the same time, as you're going through it, as you're developing your own, let's say you're doing underwriting, as you're developing your underwriting, man, drill in and figure out what's the best way to do this. Actually have a process for it. What are you doing from the time you get it from the broker till you're submitting an LOI? What is that? And then how can you refine it? How can you simplify it? How can you make it better? How can you make the tool better? And before you know it, you can have someone else doing that exact same thing. And then it's starting to become a business because the entire skill set of the world is not dependent on you, right? Right? I mean, there's so much that goes on. If you're trying to build a business, you can't be the end all for everything, right? And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, is starting out. We try and do everything, right? We're the capital raiser, the underwriter, the broker interface, it's like the social media expert, whatever. Right? You got too many hats on and you don't know what to do. But if you just kind of simplify it and step back and say, well, what do I want to focus on? And a good trigger is kind of what you said, Aaron. It's, well, what have I been doing? If you're in a W-2, you kind of have a skill set. You have an aptitude for doing something, and you enjoy doing something, and you can take that same thing and simply, look at what this space is about and look at what the activities are that are out there and find the best way to plug that in. But again, I would really encourage people, rather than trying to be all for everything in this business, figure out what your lane's going to be and pick that lane and then run with it. And honestly, develop a process. It's a pain in the rear to write down what you go through every day to do some aspect of this business. But at the end of the day, the more you do that, the more that you'll find that, hey, I can actually have other people now to come in and help support this. I don't have to be the person that's doing 90% of the underwriting. I could actually have someone come in and fill this form out, do this. And then I come in for that last 10%, whatever it might be. The same thing's true, for some of the capital raising aspects of it. So yeah, so all of kind of what I just said is maybe a picture into, did I bring in the skill sets that I had from my W-2, again, engineering, project management, process, consistent, constant improvement, all these types of ideas, building systems around things. And honestly, the bigger picture of all it is working with people, right? It's how do you work with people? Did I bring that into this space? 100% yes. Were the processes easily transferable? No, the processes weren't, but the mentality of, well, how do you excel in something, and how do you figure out, well, where am I going to fit in? And then ultimately, what's my goal in this, and which lane am I going to work in, and how am I going to partner up and find other people to fill the gaps that I need filled, right?
Right.
Or how am I going to fill the gaps that they have, even more important.
Right. A couple more questions I'm open up for the attendees to ask you. How has team building helped you in your real estate journey?
Yeah, that's probably one of the most important probably one of the most important questions. How does building a team affect your real estate journey? And I'll hint back to what I just said about sometimes when you start in the real estate space, especially in apartments or in syndication, because you can do single family rentals on your own for sure. You can do duplex, triplexes on your own for sure. You can even joint venture, on some of the smaller projects. But when you start getting into some of the bigger properties, more complex, like a syndication, to try and do that on your own, I mean, you're insane. It takes a lot of work. It takes a ton of effort. There's a whole lot of steps. There's just much more involved when you're bringing in passive investors and this type of thing. And so ultimately, building a team, ultimately building a team becomes much more important, right? Because you can't do everything. And if you try to, you're not going to succeed you're not going to go very far, in my opinion, And so that whole aspect of, we use the word team, you could also just as easily say partnerships, So in these type of meetups, even when I started out, my goal was to find people that I connected with, for whatever reason, right? It was like, hey, they're easy to talk to. Hey, they're filling a gap that I'm not. We laughed a lot, whatever. It's like, who are the people that you're starting to connect with in this space? And over time, I mean, you can easily run through and do meetups and things like this where you're making 100 connections, and in those 100 connections, maybe there's 10 people that you've actually felt like, hey, I feel like I could, have some type of connection with them that we could benefit each other from. And you start working through those phone calls and Zoom meetings and so on. Before you know it, you've got a handful of people that, you can really start doing some things with, even if you're still in different, even if you're each doing your own thing, right? But that's, someone early on asked me, hey, how do I really get into this space when I don't know anything? Right. And of course, one is go hire a mentor. Another one is partner with someone. But the thing that I often tell people is attend meetups just like this, and there's a lot of other great ones, and start getting to know people that are legitimately out there and they're making it happen. And so to your question on team, I mean, to me, it's the most important part of it. If you're not out there meeting people, and you're trying to close on an apartment building, then that's going to be extremely difficult for you. You got to get out there and meet people. And honestly, it's a whole lot more fun. Even if there's nothing wrong with the single family side, the single family rentals, there's people I know that have 15 single family rentals, that's fine. But even in that space, if you're really going to scale it, if you're really going to bring it to something substantial, then I think partner with people, finding people you can work with, finding people you can trust, finding people that fill gaps that you don't want to fill, right, is very key. And so I've spent a lot of time towards middle of last year till now really working with people. There's a couple of people that I'm just very open and honest with, and we haven't formed like partnerships under an LLC, but I've been just honest with them saying, hey, long term, like we work well together. You do things I don't want to do. I do things you don't want to do. Let's figure out a way to make this work in a more beneficial way than it has been. Like let's legitimately find a way that, hey, maybe the next project we just take it down together. But that comes with time. It comes with just being real with people and honestly putting yourself out there in a lot of discussions and a lot of phone calls and a lot of Zoom meetings, to find people that you can connect with and that you respect and that you trust. And that's a huge key to this industry. And if you do it, you're going to excel a lot faster and you're going to have a lot more fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So 2 more questions for you. What has been the main things you have learned along the way about, I know you talk about team building and things like that, but what have you learned the most, and what's the biggest things you can tell somebody who just starting off, maybe got maybe 1 or 2 deals under their belt? What can you tell them and one of your learning experiences you had?
Mm-hmm. It's a good question. And I think real estate is such a big space. And I just had a phone call with a good friend of mine not too long ago where I was kind of explaining the same thing. I think real estate's such a big space, meaning you've got any number of things that you can get into in real estate. And even in the space of syndication, right, there's lots of little niches that you can get into. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned is you gotta pick a direction, right? And stick to it for a time, because it takes a while to get good at things. But what I talked to him about, what I would encourage someone about from my own experiences, I'd tie it back to some of what I just said already, which is, hey, what are you good at and what do you enjoy doing? And ultimately, what do you really want to do? Like you better have a why behind why you're doing this. And it can't be, I want to go make a ton of money. I mean, everybody wants to make a ton of money. I mean, right? That's not new. I mean, and that's not a reason, right? That's not a reason. I mean, you better have a good reason for doing what you're going to do. And if you don't, then go find it, right? I think that's kind of step one is, why are you going to do this? Because it's a lot of pain and suffering. And you better have a good reason for why, you're putting in all the extra hours and you're going all the extra miles. And part of understanding why you're doing this and setting goals. So I set big goals is really fine tuning. What do you want to do in this space? Right. So it kind of starts to crystallize. Well, why do I want to get into this? And then what are my real long-term goals from this? And then 2, what am I really good at? So there's kind of the why side, and then there's what am I really good at side. And in that what am I really good at side, that's where you really start to fine tune, like, okay, I want to go be an apartment syndicator. Well, okay, well, what does that mean? And what, what are you doing today that fits into that circle, right? Because there's so many skill sets. I guarantee you, if someone wants to get into real estate, they've got a skill set that you can get into the space and you can do very well in. But the problem is, I think you have to pick it. Like, you've got to figure out, how are you going to do that? If you're really good in talking to people, trust me, you're going to be great at raising money, right? If people trust you, they like talking to you, you like talking to them, you're going to do really well just building relationships and, and attracting investors. You just are, right? Because you attract people and they trust you. You just got to learn the space, right? If you're really good at numbers, well, you might not be the best capital raiser, right? Because the different side of the brain. You might be one of those weird people that's good at both. That's a real challenge. You're going to go schizophrenic trying to figure out what you're good at. So, but I think, biggest lesson for me, why are you doing it? What do you want to get out of it? Which is tied to that why. And then the second part is, what are you good at? Which helps you really focus. This is the lane I'm going to stick in. Yeah. And then commit to it, because you're not going to be good at it for the first 3 months, right? You're just not. And it's going to take commitment. It's going to take focus. It's going to take talking with people, getting uncomfortable, admitting that you have no idea what you're doing sometimes. Admit that to the right people, by the way, people that are there to help you. And then really digging in and figuring out, okay, I'm going to make this the best that I can. And the more you keep hammering at that and the more you keep doing it, again, I go back to that process idea. In the end, you're kind of forming your own process out of it. And by doing so, you're just going to be better than other people at it. And that's going to be what starts really shining through. And that's not to say you can't change it in the long term, but you got to start somewhere and you got to commit to it. And then through that commitment, you're going to really figure out, okay, is this the right path? It might be a year later. Is this the right path? And if the answer is no, yeah, it's okay to turn, but you got to pick that path. You got to commit to it, because if you start off trying to do everything, you're just going to fail. You got to have a focus. You got to have a focus.
Absolutely. All right. Final question. Where do you see yourself going? Where are you going at in the next couple of years?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm a big goal setter. In fact, I try to every day. I got my little piece of paper here that I got. I try to pick 3 goals and focus on those, and that's kind of part of who I am. It's also, a big part of my wife and I as well. We're both kind of big goal setters, so it's a good question. For me, it's really about building the business, and I think, the next 2 years is really going to be about, I don't want to just be, Ridgeline Equity, one person show, right? This to me is really about, some of those partnerships I mentioned that I was already honest and open with, to say, hey, you do stuff I don't do, or you do stuff I don't enjoy doing. I certainly can, but I don't want to. And let's figure out if this is going to work out in the long run, and finding kind of these small, try it out experiments, if you will, in the space to figure out, hey, does this work as a long-term partnership? That's really where I see my goal. I would say over the next year and over the next 2 years, it's really having that team and then really growing from it. And I think that's the key for me. I think that's the real focus. It's, it's not about partnering on a GP, although that's great. I'll partner with people on GPs, certainly, especially people I really, really like. But it's really about how do we turn this into, instead of you and me, doing everything the same, every single week, let's figure out how you can do stuff and I can do different stuff. And then let's go form a business out of this. And that's really the future of kind of where I'm heading. Instead of these, one-off partnerships that we've been doing so far.
Man, great. I love it. I love it. I love it. Please, if you guys have any questions, Mr. Brady, please raise your hand or just come off mute and ask. Cedric, you got anything, man? Know you're a new guy on here.
Cedric was laughing at me. He's got a question.
Yeah, actually, I do. Thanks, Aaron, for allowing me to ask a question. So Brady, I understand. You're saying like you're right now. It's you. You're running it and you're doing these one-offs. How have you been able to select those partners? And also, how are you being able to keep everything together to move forward in your business? Because I'm like I'm the one, I'm the one guy, and I find myself at times, trying to do everything, and then at times getting burnt out doing nothing. So
yeah, I go back. It's a really good question because you can't do everything. Yeah, you'll get burnout and ultimately quit, right? Because you'll just get frustrated. When I started, I realized, hey, there's, for me, my business model and really practically speaking,
Marlowe.
practically speaking, even today, when I started, it was like, hey,
Aaron, excuse me, pause. Aaron, kick him out. Kick him out. Kick out Billy Butterwater. I know where this is headed. Kick him out and kick out the other friend. Good. Kick out Billy Butterwater as well. Thank you.
Oh, there you go.
Kick out Tatum.
I got you, Tatum. So go ahead, Brady.
All right, yeah, no worries. So when I started, kind of my business model was, hey, I'm going to do underwriting. I'm going to focus on acquisitions. I'm going to focus on building relationships with brokers.
Cedric Marlowe.
And I'm going to go find a ton of deals, and then I'm going to find people to partner with, and that's where I focused. And then from there, what I did is I met a lot of good people in meetups just like this, and I would directly ask people. In fact, here, let me hang on. It's everybody kind of has their there you go. Everybody kind of has their stuff, right? This is kind of my meetup, post
Cedric Marlowe.
Right. And it's very basic, but it's like, hey, where do I need
Cedric
help?
Marlowe.
So
Matt
I think you're getting spammed, Aaron.
Matt Clemson.
So
They're done. So sorry about that, guys.
Perfect. No, it's weird.
Thank you, so much.
So I really focused on, hey, I'm going to do the acquisition side. I'm going to focus on underwriting. I'm going to focus on networking with a ton of brokers and finding deals. And then I'm going to find other people that can raise capital because I'm just not going to do it, and through that, right, you find a lot of partnerships, or you find a lot of potential partners, right? And I just started making a list so that if I ever found a deal, I had a list of all these people that I'd already talked to. I like them. They know me. I know them, right? We've connected on Zoom calls and they're interested in what I'm doing and all this other mess. And if I ever find something that looks like it's getting close to an LOI, then I've got a list of people that I've actually taken notes on. Every meeting, by the way, I take notes on it. If I'm talking to someone, even in like breakout sessions or meetups or things like this, if they're talking and I'm talking to them, I'm taking notes on where they're from, what they like, what they enjoy, if they're raising capital, if they're underwriting, if they've got 20 deals or one deal, it's whatever, because ultimately I'm constantly looking for people that I can help, first of all, and then that can also fill gaps that I know I need. And I think through that exercise, Cedric, that's where you find out, well, how do I focus? How do I not do everything? Because it sets your mind at ease to say, I got a list of 20 people I can call. I mean, if you got a list of 20 people that can raise capital, you ain't gonna raise capital. Or if you enjoy capital raising and you got a list of 20 people that are out there finding deals, well, you ain't gotta go find a deal. You got 20 people doing it. All you got to do is build relationships and make sure that they know who you are, they trust you, that you're adding some value to them. And before you know it, it's like, I don't have to do that. I know 20 people that can, and they know me, right? It's not like they're going to get a phone call and be like, Brady, who? You know? So yeah, I think that's maybe the long-winded version of how you do it. Figure out what you want to do, and then find people that are going to do everything else. And before you know it, your mind starts to rest, right? It's no longer bogged down into, man, I got to do all this stuff. It's bogged down into, no, this is what I'm gonna focus on, because I've got 20 people that know me and I know them, and I'm gonna give a phone call as soon as something comes up.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, Brady.
Yeah, I hope that helped.
Yeah, definitely.
Hey, this was awesome. Thank you. I do got to run, but I will be in Charlotte for Dan Hanford's event. So hopefully I'll see you there. And I have a brother who lives in Charlotte, and I did a passive investment just outside of Charlotte on storage. So
very cool, man. You got ties here. You're all over it.
I've been there a couple times seeing my brother. So
very cool. Yeah, look me up, Trevor, next time you come through.
All right, take care. Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah.
All right, Trevor, thanks for coming. Mr. Tusa, let's see. Go ahead, sir. I see you raise your hand. Go ahead, sir.
Hello, my name's Raul. I'm still in college right now, but I'm graduating in a couple of days, and I'm in a similar situation as you. I'm an engineering background, so I'm going into engineering role. I was just kind of looking ahead of time, like, because I know I want to go into this space in the future. And I guess one question I had for you is like, what was your reason for real estate? Can you touch on that? I'm also curious how you broke down tasks so it could be done like in parallel, like streamlined way.
Yeah, those are two big questions. So the first one, why did I get into real estate? You know, if I go far enough back, it was probably Rich Dad Poor Dad. You know, I know that's everybody's kind of cliche book, but if I go back to the early 2000, let's say 2005, sometime around there, 2004, it was probably something related to that, or there were some other people I was around at that time that were entrepreneurs, and the idea of passive income became, real to me, right? That idea that, man, I can have money work for me without me working, right? Really became a strong driver, right? Because when you're just doing your day-to-day stuff, I mean, you're a lot smarter than I am, clearly, because I didn't pick that up till I had been working for a long time, but when you start getting your head around, man, I can, even if it's a small amount of money, who cares? But from a very early start, if you can get your money working for you outside of your time, your personal time, that is very powerful. And I think I latched onto it around that kind of mid 2000 mark. And that's what really got me interested in, hey, I'm going to go do the single family thing, back to my story that I said earlier without going through the whole thing. Now, how do I blend that with like the W-2 space and everything's busy? You got 40,000 things you're supposed to do in life. And I mean, I've got a wife, 2 kids, and a dog too. So, I mean, it's, this is not a slow household, but I kind of look at it like, you can watch, America's Funniest Videos, or you can build a business, I mean, you got time to watch America's Funniest Videos or Survivor, you can be doing something else. I mean, just to be frank and honest. And I think you got to want it, which goes back to the why. Like, why are you going to do this? And for me, I mean, my why is strong, without going into lots of detail, because I know we're running short on time perhaps, but my why is driven by my family. It's driven by time. And money is not as valuable as time. You can buy time, and money just needs to be your slave to get there. I mean, you got to find a way to get your money working for you. And it becomes, you know, sometimes I think, I forget which book it was from, somebody on the call may remind me, but, you know, it was this picture of, if you picture your money as like little people, and the more you use that money, the more that just turns into lots and lots more people working for you. And before you know it, you have this mob of people, which is your money, right? In this scenario, working for you constantly, and you're sleeping. You're not doing anything. It's working for you full time. And that mindset, you know, driven by, you know, what's the reason behind what you're doing? And for me, it's time. It's that freedom to choose where I want to live. I don't want someone telling me, hey, you know, you may not have a job next year, so you got to go move because we got this other thing going. You know, I don't want that. I want that freedom to be able to choose. Now, how do you integrate that in? I think I skipped over that, but how do you integrate it in? I do a lot of automations. I think, Raul, you've got an engineering background. There's a lot of ways to automate life. There's even little things, you know, outside of this industry, there's lots of ways to automate the things you do. You know, I order a ton of stuff from Amazon because I don't have to go to the store to get it, because that's a lot of time to get up and go to the store. You know, I mean, just think about the little things in life that you can cut time out of. And in this industry, you can do the same thing. I have automations in how I do underwriting. There's programs, there's software programs called, you know, Zapier. There's another solution to that called Make, which is what I use. It used to be called Integromat, and I use Make, which is, they've changed it now. It's very intuitive, but I tie together all these systems that aren't supposed to talk to each other, and they talk to each other. So that when I have something to underwrite, I literally drag something from one place to another. It sends emails, creates templates, creates folders, emails people, creates actions in Asana. And all I did was drag something to a folder, you know. In the acquisition process, it's kind of that same mentality. It's like, I just want to click a button, and then I want some things to happen without me having to do all those things. And I think, especially, you know, with that kind of analytical mindset that you have, Raul, I think if you have that mentality and you're looking at what is everybody else doing and how can I make it better, I mean, you're going to find significant ways to do things differently, you know, and better. And you're going to look up and you're like, yeah, all these other people, it took so long to do it, and you've automated it somehow, or you've cut this system out entirely, or yeah, that's how you do it. There's no magic to it. You got to find what works for you and those you live with. And then if you can't automate. If you can't, delegate. And if you can't, do it yourself, you know. and if, you know, and like I was telling, you know, Cedric, it's partnerships. Find partners. That's really it. Systems and partners are your two biggest time savers. Yeah. That's your two biggest carrots, systems and partners. You gotta have good people.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and congratulations on graduating.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Tinto, yup, sir. Cinto?
I think you can't talk.
In the chat, Eric.
Okay. Thank you, Brady, for your time, experience, with your engineering background. Have you ever thought about starting a prop tech app or company? I think you have a unique background, and you could partner up with someone and lend your experience to that.
I've never thought about that, I can say. I wouldn't even know how to necessarily. You know, I have thought about, you know, how do I take some of what I'm doing, because honestly, you can do more. I think here's what I've learned this year, right? And kind of answering can you take your background and use it kind of in a different place or in a different way or a different company. So to answer your question specifically, not in those two areas, no. But in other ways, I have thought about, there's a lot of experienced syndicators that I think people would be surprised at how systematic they are not. Right? Because you get to doing something and you're focused on it. And then what suffers is the how behind what you're doing, right? And you start to scale and you start to get more properties, you start to get more problems. And those problems only compound if you don't have the actual systems in place in your business to support it, right? And that's a very dangerous place to be. So some of the things that I have thought about is, how do I partner with people that are more experienced than me? Because honestly, I'm not, I'm not the big wig in the room by any means, but even me, we can all kind of say that even I can contribute to some of these larger syndications, because they may not realize it, but they need skill sets that each of you have. And it's finding a way to add value to that. And one of those ways that I have thought about is, hey, how can I partner with these guys that have scaled, but honestly don't have the systems in place or the organizational aptitude to figure out, how to manage this in the long term, such that it's not going to kill your business because you've scaled too fast, or you've just scaled without developing your business in the path. Am I a part of any universities or affiliated with them? No, I'm not. It's the who, not the how. Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree, right? I don't, even in what I do for the W-2 and my project management, I'm not the smartest person in the room, and man, I don't want to be. I couldn't do half the stuff that some of these other people can do. And I take that same approach in what I do in business. There's people that are a lot smarter than me. Awesome. I don't need to be the smartest person in the room. It's really connecting, what are the problems to solve with the right people. And ultimately, that's really what this business is about. What problem you're trying to solve and who's the right people to partner with to get that done. Jordan, you had a question there?
Yeah, so appreciate you for hopping on. Love it. I'm trying to figure out which one because my biggest issue right now is finding the people, and not necessarily just finding any people. You mentioned a few factors of trustworthiness, the skills, the drive and those desire type of things. It's for whatever reason, it's some sort of mismatch that ends up being very mismatched. So I might find somebody with a talent, but they are already on their own deals and very busy, and not able to include them in on any deals, even if I find deals with value. And then you got people who might want to work with you, and you might be able to trust, but then they don't have the skill sets. Yeah, I know you talk to a bunch of people, and that's all I've been doing is talking to people and trying to sift through all the noise. Are there any tips or things to help me not be wasting so much time and energy taken away from the business?
Yeah, that's the magic sauce right there. Right? That's the Colonel's secret, right? Yeah, I think so. So a couple of things, right? I'll touch on two things. One, I'll talk about why I started a mastermind at one point, and the other one is I'm going to go back and talk about what I said earlier, which is, I think if you've already kind of picked your lane, what you're gonna focus on, why you're gonna do it, you've got the target, let's say, right? And you're going after it, and you're improving each time, and you're kind of going down that path. And on the other side of it, like I said earlier, like, who are the people that I need to network with and get to know to fill the gaps that I don't want to do? Who's that 20 people that are going to settle my mind to say, hey, I'm doing all this, and if I get something, well, then I'm going to need X, Y, and Z, right? Who's that mentality? Who's that person? Who's that skill set? If you kind of think about that, that will really focus your efforts, I think, on who to get to know, if that's helpful. One thing that I did, Jordan, was early on, I mean, I knew that I needed other people, kind of like what you're saying. And one of the things that I tried out was I started my own mastermind group for a while. And I did it around, you pick something, right? But what I picked was goal setting, because what I saw at one of the conferences I went to was, hey, you know, I connected with these 3, 4, 5 people. And out of that, I was like, man, I really want to make something of this, and I want to keep pushing. And I want to make sure that I don't lose momentum that I have. And so I connected with those 3, 4, 5 people. And I said, hey, let's just do a kind of a mini mastermind, if you will. And once a week we'll meet, and, you know, we'll each have a goal for that week. And the goal, the purpose, the only purpose of the meeting is, what was your goal? How'd you do? And what'd you learn from it? I mean, it was that simple. But the trigger is, you actually got to have a goal, right? You got to be working towards something. And so I started that, and that lasted for maybe 9 months to a year. I can't remember. But I started a lot of great relationships from that. People that I still talk to today. Ultimately, things change. This was also kind of COVID came in. So, you know, it's like working from home, not working from home, going back into work. I mean, things change over life, right? And they will continue to. And so the group, it just didn't work out to continue meeting. But that led to some good relationships. But how do you find a way to not waste time, in that process? I mean, I think knowledge of self is a critical skill, I would say. And I say knowledge of self for 2 reasons. One is, are you really good at what you think you're good at? Right? I mean, take an honest assessment. I thought, I'll tell you a personal example. I thought at one point I was going to transition into raising capital, right? Because I was so frustrated with the other stuff that was going on. And I was like, well, I'm going to go transition into raising capital. And so I started doing some things along that path. And I keep in mind, I really enjoy talking to people. I like teaching people. But the things I'm not great at is social media. I'm just not. I'm not. And right now, like, that's how a lot of people are connecting. And so most of my investors are friends, family, and people that have, kind of, randomly found me on social media because I don't have a big presence. And so I had to do a real self-assessment and go, am I really good at this? Is this really what I should transition into? And the answer was no, dummy, because you're a lot better at other things. And I think if you have that kind of self-awareness of, am I really good at what I think I'm really good at? And if the answer is no, dummy, you should be doing other things, that's going to save you a truckload of time. And it's also going to really focus you. And if the answer is, yeah, no, you're really good at this, well, then that answer is also, well, who do I need to talk to? And when you go into a meetup, when I would go into a meetup, I had the mentality of, when we started doing the breakout rooms, I knew what I was going to say. I was going to say, one, hey, it's almost in the little thing I posted there. Yeah, I'm living in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm focused on acquisitions. I do this, I do that, talk a little bit about me. And then I just started telling people, I like meeting people that love to raise capital, or they want to be a key principal on a deal, or they really want to invest in Charlotte, or they really want to invest in South Carolina, or whatever. But I started going into the meetup saying, this is who I am. This is kind of what I can offer. And hey, I really want to be boots on the ground for someone, or I really want to help them with the acquisition side, whatever it is that is in that category of, yes, I'm really good at this. Start with that. And then the second thing is, this is who I really like to talk to. And I'm really looking to partner with people that have this. And that will clear out a lot of the fog.
I actually love that. That gives me an idea, because what you said, you actually talked about capital from like 3 different perspectives. And so that's also something that, you know, it probably will help if I'm looking for a specific thing, you know, for somebody who's raising funds or for somebody who's, you know, looking to be, you know, a KP or something like that. Those are all different ways to be able to say, hey, if you want to invest on this project, you know, or invest, you know, with me, then we can look at that. So awesome. Appreciate that.
Yeah. And take the approach that you can help them as well, right? Like generally people that raise capital, they need deals, and deals are the hardest to find right now. Right?
Oh, I got
Much
a
more
ton.
so than ever before. And if you know, on one side, if you can raise a ton of money, that's valuable to the people that are finding deals, right? If you can find deals, it's really valuable to the people that can raise capital. And so put yourself out there as to, you know, this is what I really enjoy doing. I really like working with people that do this, you know, and then you'll find a lot of people, and it'll clear a lot of the fog. And before you know it, you'll have a list of 100 people you've connected with, and out of that 10 that, you know, you really like to work with.
Awesome. Awesome. Appreciate it.
One final thing before we get off of here, and we'll keep the party going after party. But Miss Lisa asked Brady, she asked about, do you have any links about underwriting or anything like that, or could you share?
Any like links to like websites for underwriting and things like this, I guess?
Yeah, or what you use for underwriting.
Yeah, so for the longest time, I used Michael Blanc's syndicated deal analyzer. I used that for a long time. And then now what I use my own model now. We developed our own model a while back. Mainly did it for the integration. And again, I go back to the system, right? Life is about building systems around you so you don't have to think about it, and, you know, things become easy. So part of that exercise for me, or part of that process development for me, was none of these tools really worked in what I was doing. So I built my own model. But I started with Michael Blanc's. He's got videos out there. I think you have to pay for them. The syndicated deal analyzer, I think you also have to pay for. There's also lots of people out there that, you know, they're selling their models, and with it, you know, they're doing videos about how to do underwriting and training. I know Rob Beardsley has one. There's others out there. I mean, I don't know who they all are. Yeah, Kenneth, I mean, James Ang has a YouTube channel where he talks about, you know, different aspects of underwriting as well. Yeah, so there's a lot of good stuff out there. Unfortunately, I don't have any links I can share with you. Yeah.
It's all good. And also you can come to my main man Daryl Murphy's meetup. He always talk about underwriting and things like that that they do. So
yeah, Daryl dives deep into underwriting, and he actually, I think, Aaron, right, he uses different models on occasion, even in those kind of sessions, right? So it's kind of a good area to learn.
Yeah,
he uses Spencer Thomas's model a lot. And also Saturday, GOB, that Charles Seaman, he does like a monthly or bi-weekly underwriting call every I think it's every other Saturday, I believe, like Saturday afternoon. So, you know, if you're just curious about it, you know, there's usually a pretty good amount of people there, and he just will go through a deal head to toe, you know, the T12, the rent roll, everything, and he uses a couple of different analyzers. So you just get a feel of like all the tools you need to know for underwriting, because each of these guys that Brady mentioned, like, you know, Rob Beardsley, James Ang, Michael Blank, you know, they all cut up the pie in different ways, but it's still, you know, at its core the same thing. You need how is the property going to operate, what kind of NOI is it going to generate, and where are your risks as far as, you know, NOI drops or something like that. So, you know, I would just try to pick one and learn it, and then once you have that model down or that, then you can start branching out. But this, you know, and there's like, there's a couple paid stuff, and there's plenty of free stuff out there too as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Practice is the key, I think. You do enough, and you watch what other people are doing, and you know, you're going to see things that you didn't think about, things you didn't realize, and yeah, you just get much better over time. But I would definitely tie into some other people as well, as you're learning, to get their feedback, see how they're doing it. Maybe Daryl Murphy's, session that Aaron mentioned is a good one, or Charles that Kenneth mentioned. Charles, something where you're kind of getting different perspectives on people that have done a lot of underwriting will help you out a lot.
All right. Well, look, this has been a great meetup. I just want to say thank you, Brady, once again. Man, it's great knowledge that you will share with all of us. Let you guys know, April Eck will be my guest speaker next week, talk about finances. Just want to say thank you guys once again for coming out. Thank you, Cento, for looking out for me. So we might be changing our page, so we'll see about that. Just remember, guys, life is short. You want to build a legacy for you and your family. You just never know. And always share knowledge with others too. So I just want to say that word of knowledge. God bless you guys. Take care. Talk to you soon. See you next week.